So welcome everyone to this month's Corentus First Friday with the Thought Leader. We are very excited to have a very good friend and an incredible thought leader with us today, Ms. Madeleine Homan. We are all here because we are part of the community of global professionals advancing team effectiveness. These are some of the places in which people come to us from. These were partners and people we've worked with in the past that we are very good friends with and thrilled to be partnered with them. And so with that, I bring Alexander Caillet to introduce our thought leader, Madeleine Homan Blanchard.
Before I formally introduce Madeleine, or as she likes to be called, and I like to call her Mad, I want to say that Mad is a human being that I've known for well over 30 years and someone who I deeply, deeply respect and love very much. She's just an outstanding human being, and I've always had a lot of fun with Mad. We don't see each other a lot, unfortunately, but when we do, it seems like we pick up right where we left off, even if it's been years since we've spoken. But I was so pleased that Mad would come and spend this time with us today. So without further ado, here's the formal bio, and I'm going to read it. So you ready for this, Mad? It's the formal one. Here we go. So Madeleine Homan Blanchard is Chief Coaching Architect and co-founder of Coaching Services at Blanchard. She co-chairs the Office of Intellectual Property and serves on the boards of Blanchard and the Blanchard Institute. A pioneer in coaching since 1989, she helps organizations build coaching cultures and created Blanchard's Leadership Coach Certification program. Her focus includes emotional, spiritual intelligence, leadership presence, self-awareness, and strategic execution. She co-authored Blanchard Management Essentials and Coaching Essentials, and frequently speaks on coaching and neuroscience. So we're going to have a conversation today about coaching, and we're going to cut at it in different ways. I really want to begin with the early years of coaching, where Mad was a pioneer, and to talk about what happened then, why you got into it, and then we're going to just meander where we go. We're going to touch on different topics in coaching. We're going to talk a little bit about team coaching and specifically team leader coaching. And then we're also going to talk about AI, the brand new world of AI and what it's doing to coaching and what we can expect. So with that, my first question to you, Mad, is what got you into coaching? Like, why did you jump into this? What happened? What year was it?
Well, it's easy for me to remember the year because it's the year that my first child was born. And after my first child was born, after Hannah was born, I realized I couldn't go back to my first profession. I went to I've been an actor, whatever. And she was like 6 weeks old, and I went to an audition, and I had like I guess the word is an epiphany, but it was a voice in my head. It was so clear. It was just like, you don't belong here. These aren't your people. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. My poor mother. I'd finally gotten success as an actor, and she's like, what are you doing? Who walks away from I could make a living, which in that field is considered, I thought it was successful anyway. And I could have stayed in it, but I just walked away because it was so clear to me it wasn't for me. I was applying to NYU for a master's in psychology, but I knew I didn't want to be a therapist. It was like, no, the people I don't want to deal with like real problems. And I didn't have the language for any of this until after, right? But I wanted to do for others what certain people had done for me, but there wasn't a name for it. And then someone who'd been a business consultant for me when I was an actor, Henry House, now Henry Kimsey House, who started the Coaches Training Institute, or the Coactive. He'd moved to California, and he called me up and he said, Mad, I've become a coach. It's this thing. Like a lot of what we did with actors at the Actors Information Project. A lot of coaches came out of that. Maybe some of you on this call. And he said, I think you're a coach, because he knew I'd left acting. And you should hire me to be your coach, and I'm going to help you become a coach. And I'll never, I was on a phone, it was attached to a wall, but I had the baby on my shoulder and the phone on the ear, and I said, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that sounds exactly right. It was
Great.
just totally intuitive. And what did he give me? What did we have? Not much. We had the Wheel of Life. If you don't know what that is, I can send you a link. Google it. It's all over. And I'll tell you, you can get a lot done with that thing, right? It's just rate how successful you feel in all these different areas of your life, and let's start working on them. Because I had so much access to actors and I'd had a successful acting career, I just was able to build a practice really quickly, because I'd call people up and I'd say, hey, you should hire me, pay me $100 a month. Okay. And I was happy to get it. And I'm going to help you work on your acting career. So I was one of the first people to have a full practice. And then people would refer. And as Thomas Leonard said, he was my second coach after Henry. How do you know you're successful as a coach? People, A, hire you, B, stay, 3, refer their friends.
Yeah.
How else do you know? And I started working with models. And that was crazy, because they'd walk into my office and I'd be like, I needed sunglasses because they were so amazing looking. And then I started working with other artists and inventors, and we all started talking about niche. Forgive me if you say niche. And I was like, what? None of my clients have anything in common. And then someone really intelligent said, well, it sounds like the people you work with are the very definition of what Kant talks about, the creative genius. And I said, say what? I kind of had to act like I knew what he was talking about. But I went and researched it, and that was it. So that was my niche, is creative geniuses. And it's still true. I just seem to have a real affinity for, understanding of, empathy for people who are way smarter than the people around them. Not because I am, mind you, let me be clear. Or people who just keep putting things together in new ways. Kant's definition of creative genius is the person who create something new out of an existing material or idea. I'm paraphrasing. So I was, and being with you, Alex, it brings me back to a time where I was so messianic, because I really thought, okay, coaching can solve all problems for
Everything.
all people.
Everything.
I have learned since then, maybe not so much, but it can really provide such a service for people. Because I had a therapist. I had worked with a Jungian therapist for 4 years, and I'm not saying it wasn't good, but I'm saying that working with Henry and then Thomas Leonard and then other coaches, it was so 2 different things. And even as we created Coach University and then the ICF, we really struggled to define, how is this different from consulting or therapy or counseling? So it was so much fun, right, to kind of figure that out. And then 2 other people, Laura Berman Fortgang and Stephen Clooney, who you were quite good friends with, Alex, also. The 3 of us started the certification for ICF. You couldn't find 3 people less right for that job, but we got it started. And that, it turned out, that's like one of my superpowers, is to start things. And I've started a lot of things. But then my issue is that once something is up and running and working-ish, it's boring to me, so I have to go start something else. It's very inconvenient trait. I mean, useful and inconvenient. So that's kind of the origin story. And I remember when we all met Alex, it was maybe at the second ICF conference, you were presenting about working in organizations and actual businesses. And we were all like, oh, okay, that might be a way we could actually all make some money. So we need to listen to Alex, and he's going to help us figure this out. So we thought Alex was the second coming. I really can't remember what you taught us, but it must have been good because we were all like, he would do a talk and he would have like lines out the door of people who wanted to talk to him. It was really fun.
I recollect the origin story that you went through. My curiosity is, we're now so many years later and you're still coaching. What's different today? What's happening today in the world of coaching that you as a coach would say is different? What are some of the trends that you're seeing today that we need to pay attention to as practitioners? What's on your docket? What are you seeing?
Well, the one thing I can say that's still the same is that once we banded together and started the ICF and then started a certification thing, we've always complained about, oh, that person says they're a coach, but they're not really doing coaching, right? The consultants who just added coach to their business card, the counts, and we're still complaining about that. Like, anyone can be a coach. And this is before I got involved with Blanchard, formerly known as the Ken Blanchard Companies. And I think you were at the Linkage Conference where
Yes.
Ken talked about his book, Everyone's a Coach, that he wrote with Don Shula. And we were all like, right, it was killing us because it's like, that's not true. Everyone is not a coach. And the way they define coaching is different from the way we professional coaches define coaching. So, that's been around forever and it's still happening today. And it's worse now because the coaching industry has been exploding and has actually exploded. There are so many coaches. So, and because they're now decent training programs, there are a lot of very good coaches.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest trend I'm seeing now is very experienced, masterful coaches who are struggling to stand out in the crowd. That's one trend. And of course, I mean, the big bad scary monster of AI is, we just can't even have a conversation without talking about it.
Yeah. We're going to go there. That'll be the final question. I mean, we're going to talk till about half past, and then we're going to give the folks on the call a chance to ask you some questions. What I'm curious, before we get to AI, because I know it's a deep topic, and I know we talked about it in preparing. I do want to take a moment to go to teams, only because First Fridays are really seeped in teams.
Yeah.
So many leadership books don't talk enough about teams and teamwork. They do, but we think they could probably talk more about it. What is your point of view in terms of coaching leaders to be team leaders, about team coaching and the whole advent of this field that we're experiencing? What do you see, Mad?
There's a lot of really great leadership thinkers who have talked a great deal about teams, right? Cotter et al., and it's grown, and Blanchard has a whole team leadership model and all that. So people have been talking about it. I think the biggest thing that's changed, Alex, is that work has gotten so much more complex that people used to work on one team and they had their team. But now, if you're working in an organization, you're maybe leading a team or two or three, and on another couple more. And teams have to work together. And the complexity has just gotten exponentially more difficult to manage.
Yeah.
And it was almost like back in the day before things got as complicated as they are, you could almost get away with not being great at it, not being a great team leader, not being a great team player. But now the competition is so fierce. Everyone you're working with is at least as smart as you and probably smarter. And the difference is going to be, are you a good team member? Are you good at helping your team interface with another team to get something done? Something complicated and difficult with, serious Gantt charts. That's going to be the differentiator. So I just think that's, to me, why it's gotten even more important today than it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, I think if on our side, what we're seeing is there is a niche, to use the niche word, that is opening in the market around team leadership. So there's team coaching, and there's coaching the leader, and there's leadership coaching, and there's executive coaching, and there's a whole slew of different forms of coaching. But team leader coaching for the complexity, the multi-team, the multinational teams, the transient teams, and all the different forms of teaming, from intact to totally reconfigurable, that definitely is a niche that we're seeing. So let's go to AI, because you and I had a pretty fabulous conversation about this. What I'm seeing is two sides of a coin. I'm reading articles on both sides. I'm reading certain set of articles that are saying that AI will take over coaching. You'll use your basic AI interface, plus you'll use a video that will read your micro expressions and your emotions, and you'll have a video avatar, and all of that will create a real coaching experience, and off you go. And then the other side of the coin is saying, absolutely not. I mean, you can be AI assisted, but the fundamental essence of coaching, the human exchange, the nuance, the sensing, the in the moment, is not going to be replaced by AI. Where do you land? And there's also things it's things in the middle. It's not one or the other, but where do you land on this, Mad? Where are we?
One of the things that I've spent the last 23 years focused on is scaling coaching, right? So that wasn't even in my bio, but we rolled out with Peter Bregman.
Oh yeah,
We rolled out coaching to 2,300 people across the globe for an investment banking firm. And I was 37 or something. My hair went gray. My hair literally went gray. So now you know. And then I started coaching.com with Scott Blanchard, specifically to scale coaching. And we created software, blah, blah, blah. And the biggest impediment to organizations really leveraging coaching the way they like to, because they know it makes a difference. There are ROI studies, but anyone who's actually worked with a coach is like, oh, yeah, who doesn't need this? But it's expensive.
yeah.
Because you're working with a human being and that human needs to be paid. And if you're scaling it, there's project management and reporting and all that stuff. So, of course, organizations especially want to leverage AI. Even individuals, right? Because even paying a reasonably decent coach, it's expensive.
It is.
So why not AI, right? And I think AI actually, I'm a huge fan. It's made me a better writer. It helps me with my research.
Mhm.
I think it's extraordinary. And I think the place where AI is going to take over is basic coaching, skill building coaching, helping people with assessments, choose what assessment, identifying gaps, skill gaps, providing them with, oh, here's a course you can take. Here's some things you could do. Try this, do that. And, some might argue that's not even coaching.
Right.
But it is and it's not. Probably AI is not going to ask you, because they've noticed an expression on your face. I don't know how, I don't care how good it gets. It's not going to ask you, how important is that really? And is there something else that might be more important? And when the client goes, right, that big silence. I mean, back in the day, right? I spent 20 years coaching longer coaching people on the phone without being able to see them. You knew something was happening. And all of a sudden the client says something like, well, actually, all this stuff we're talking about, yeah, it's important. It's going to make me better at my job. But, the thing I really need to talk about is the fact that I think I'm in the wrong job. And especially if the organization has provided this AI coaching, is someone really going to say that? Like, really? Probably not, because the question was never asked. And even if it is, they probably don't feel safe having the conversation. I don't even want to say this out loud, but I think I don't even want to be an attorney. I made a mistake. And I have a huge mortgage, and I have 3 kids, and I have a spouse who relies on the money I'm making, and I'm not sleeping. So is AI going to have that conversation? Because that's the conversation that needs
To be had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, now I need to research this, Alex, but I'm pretty sure that the articles that are written saying AI is coming for your job, coaches, they're mostly written by the people who are creating the coaching AI businesses.
Interesting.
Could be wrong. Don't think I am.
Well, I think it's an interesting debate, and I think what I'd like to do is stop here between the two of us. We can still have a conversation. We have time, but I want to open it up to the folks who are on this call.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for your comments. Just a comment, an observation. So I spent many years on the HR talent and recruitment side, and I remember when LinkedIn came out, that it was a similar analogy, and I was in headhunting too. So the headhunters are going to go out of business.
Right.
Everyone's going to find their talent through LinkedIn and, other sundry technologies. And the fact of the matter is that did not happen. And I think to your point, Alex, and again, there's probably differences, but at the lower level jobs, right? Maybe administrative, entry level jobs. Yes, LinkedIn is a great tool for recruiters to find people, and even more senior than that, no question. But you still need human intervention, I believe, in the recruitment space at some point. And you certainly need it, which is where the executive search focuses at the more senior levels, because senior people are busy. They want to know that they're heard. They want to be able to deal with somebody, at least at the time that LinkedIn came out. So I just thought about that as you were talking. I don't know if the parallels will be similar, but I remember the big hula at the time that all search firms were going out of business, and that clearly has not happened.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
There was a lot of worry about it, and it's become a global phenomenon.
Well, and interestingly, Barbara, to your point, one of the reasons that Scott Blanchard wanted to get educated about coaching and then to start a coaching, practice for Blanchard at the time was, it was 1999. My friend Laura Berman Fortgang spoke at a Blanchard client conference about coaching. And he went up to her and said, I need to know about this coaching thing. I need to understand this. And she said, well, I'm headed to an ICF conference. Funny, you should, and come with me. You'll meet anyone who's doing anything interesting. So that's where I met it, in Orlando in 1999. And he got really interested in coaching because what he was hearing was e-learning, remember that, was coming for the training business.
Yeah.
And he was on fire with that. And guess what? Yeah, it's a thing. It's useful. We love it. It's handy. But it did not completely take over the traditional training model. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen very fast.
Yeah.
And the thing that pushed it over the edge, honestly, was COVID. I thought it was going to be 9/11. So it took so much longer for And he thought, okay, if most learning is going to be done digitally, we're going to need to provide people with a place to have conversations about what they're learning. He just knew it intuitively.
Thank you, Madeleine. I'm so kind of like loving everything the way you are talking about, and just appreciating the arc that you experienced. Funny thing, when I was the president for ICF Washington State, where I live, I asked coaches, that is, what do you want from ICF? What do you want ICF to do? And the common answer is like, make sure you differentiate like those who are credentialed, who are not, those who are coaches, who are not. I'm like, that's kind of compliance thing and doesn't really excites me.
Yeah.
Eventually we did something like that was like exciting and energy giving. That's my policy everywhere, even with the AI. I actually created an AI chatbot custom using ChatGPT, and one of my clients actually are using it in between sessions, and he is loving it.
That's
So
great.
I just wanted to share that. I don't have like a specific question, but I feel like we need to be experimental. Like
Yes.
it is in the horizon. It's like
Yes.
in a watch business, it didn't go away because watch became cheaper. People still wear watches, right? Computers, same thing. So sometimes I feel like I'm a minority in that room when people fear about that. So I'm really getting excited and inspired by how you are saying this.
It's a great attitude. Thank you, Charmin. I think I'm with you. And Gregory Harrison is asking how your client uses the chatbot. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, happy to.
Please.
So this guy is a former CTO, now doing startups, multiple startups. So he's like very techy. So he just like have you used ChatGPT? So this is ChatGPT, based on ChatGPT. So the interface is exactly the same. I just fed it all my public blogs that I write. It's public. So he just asks, for example, last time he has this 3 stream of thoughts. That's kind of like on the one hand, on the other hand, kind of like, typical, all this dilemma, right? Internal dilemma. And he just like had a conversation with, and the way I created this is, make sure you just read my blogs and answer from that. Don't make it up, because ChatGPT is so good at that. So basically, it is actually using my way of questioning to answer, to pose another question or observe. Even the other day, I asked him to journal about some of this thought streams that's not like easy to kind of like resolve in one session. And he actually fed that to ChatGPT, my GPT, and got some, insights. Looks like these 3 themes are coming up. And he shared that with me. And of course, we will talk more in our next session. So does that give you a sense of how they're using?
That was great.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really
And I also
cool.
asked this question, like, what do you like more, the GPT one or myself as a human? Funny thing, he said, I like that one, the GPT one more. I was like, oh my goodness. But
But it's a way you could replicate yourself
yeah,
if you charged them to use your, right?
exactly.
But it also accelerates
Yeah,
if they're willing to do the work between sessions, it's going to accelerate their
yeah.
trajectory,
Yeah,
which is so
yeah.
cool.
That's the beauty of it. I get
It
to
is.
experiment
Yeah.
what's possible. He's not just sitting there with the question for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. He could
Right.
use this tool. So that's
Love that.
my
Thank
way
you,
of
Charmin.
yeah. Thank you.
Well, first of all, Madeline, fascinating to hear from you and your background as one of the founding entrepreneurs of the coaching profession, along with Alexander and some others. It's fascinating. So I'm relatively new to this whole arena, but we work with Alexander closely as part of the Revol team that I'm on. But I wanted to very, very briefly provide a totally different perspective on AI and team coaching and team development specifically, and it's something that Revol's working on. We call it AI co-working. And quickly, effective use of AI is a team sport because people need to create certain elements that you tell the AI. They're called context blocks. It's the Kendall project that has developed this methodology, which we use. And only the team can create those context blocks. And when you combine the Corentus team development and in situ team coaching with the AI framework that the Kendall project uses, including the context blocks, you wind up with AI co-working. But you better have a really good team to be able to do that effectively. And so all of the Corentus team development tools, selectively used according to voice of the team, are incredibly important for a team to be able to do that well. And so that's a whole nother way of it's coming in orthogonally to the hey, let's just use AI as a tool and create coaching assistants and those kinds of things. So different perspective.
Thank you, Mike. I want to throw it back to you right now. What's coming up for you? What's on your mind? And where do you want to go at this point in the conversation? Because we really want to hear as much from you as possible. What's on your mind?
You know, I love technology. I've always loved technology. I think any way we can leverage technology to make life better is always going to be a good thing. Someone said something about a year ago, and I think it's just so true. I wish I'd said it myself, and I can't even give him credit because I can't remember his name, but I did not come up with this myself. But he said, you know, what's going to happen is the same thing that's always happened with technology, which is that it's going to take the jobs that are repetitive, boring, tedious, etc. And what's going to be left is the jobs that only human beings can do. I mean, right? AI, a robot. I just can't believe for a second that a baby being rocked by a robot is going to be the same as a baby being rocked by a human. In fact, research was done with monkeys. That exact, well, okay, it was a wire frame, but so, and people have talked about the compassionate witness aspect of coaching that makes it so powerful. But to me, the kind of dirty little secret about coaching that I've only talked about in very safe spaces is, I think the thing that makes the biggest difference for most clients is, at least my clients, is that I love them. I love them unconditionally. And no matter what happens, I don't judge them. You know, they come to a call saying, oh, I didn't do my homework, or I messed up, or blah, or whatever. I started smoking again. Whatever it is, right? And almost everyone in that person's life is going to be like, God, why'd you do that? You can't be, whatever. And I'm the one person who's going to be like, wow, how does that feel? And there's just something about the one human plus another human creating something that's more than the sum of the parts. And to me, it's a very spiritual experience, right? And coaching for me has always been a calling. It's always been a calling. And again, that's not something I talked about. I've talked about that much because, you know, to me, it's only really safe to talk about that with other coaches. So, and I think it's going to distinguish the masterful coaches, people who have such a powerful experience that they are going to refer their colleagues and their friends. That separates the technically proficient coaches from the coaches who something happens that the clients don't understand, but they know it was good.
So curious, what you've seen, some of the clients that I've had conversations with, they're worried about AI for their own businesses, like the service industries, financial services, etc. So, you know, they're worried about, is AI going to take over and completely, you know, they're not even going to be around as a business, perhaps in 5 to 7 years. So the way I'm working with them is helping them elevate their humanity. So coaches are needed more to help them be more human. You can't leave your feelings at the door. That's now become your greatest freaking asset. You know, so they've spent their entire lives or professional lives with that notion of leading their feelings at the door, you know, and now they're like, oh my gosh, how do I not only bring this in for myself as running, the C-suite or the CEO of an organization, but how do I bring greater humanity to the rest of my organization, especially on the service side? Just curious what you're seeing in that world.
Well, it's a brilliant way to go at it. Right. I can't argue with that. And I think that's exactly perfect. But also to encourage them to experiment.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to take over some jobs, but it's probably going to take over jobs that a lot of people don't like doing.
Yeah. The shift is happening. You know, people are like, oh my God, all those people are going to be out of work. But you remember, you know, typically when an industry goes away, remember we weren't around when the riots in LA were about horses being replaced by cars. And so many people's jobs were dependent on horses. You know, just think of the whole chain of what needs to happen, of all the variety of businesses and workers keeping horses, you know, as the mode of transportation. That was huge. There were riots and everything. You know, that shift is occurring. So how do we hold one another during this shift? This an additional shift that we've had so many in humanity to what are the next jobs?
Well, and this one's just going to be faster.
Exactly.
Elliot Mazie, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's thought of as the father of e-learning and digital learning, et cetera. He came and spoke to our executive team at Blanchard. And he said, you know, the reason this is so scary is that it's just so much faster than every other change we've had, right? And it's going to keep getting faster. So, and that is scary for us as humans, and that's normal. And he said, I think there's two responses that are wrong. Like the two things you can't do is keep your head in the sand, which is, that's certainly an instinct. And the other is to be so seduced by it that you lose the thread, the plot, you know. And I think it goes back to what Barbara was saying earlier, and what you're saying, I think, is exactly right. It's like you're constantly evolving as a coach, but also we're working with our clients to help them evolve to be the best possible version of themselves they can be, and to continually hone in on that thing that they bring to the table, the world, the job, the company, whatever, that nobody else can bring. And certainly AI can't. Right. And so one way of saying that is their humanity. But, you know, I think we can help them to pinpoint what aspect of you, of your humanness, of your specialness, your you-ness, have you left on the cutting room floor? You know, that maybe it's time to go dig around for that. Where is that thing that I knew I had in high school or college or grad, you know, whatever. And, you know, we've all had to reinvent ourselves. I mean, when I met you guys, you weren't into teams. That was, you know, you got there. And now, you know, what's the next evolution of that? I'm not, you know, and that's true for everyone in this room.
Thank you, Mad. So we're almost at the end. I'd like to leave everyone with a thought about this whole conversation around AI. And I think, and it's also happening in the therapeutic domain, where I'm reading some really interesting pros and cons there too. But there comes a moment in the coaching relationship and exchange, in the coaching session, in the therapeutic session, when the coaches or the therapists' deep intuitive senses go to work and pick up a whole group of data, from micro expressions to emotions to who the person is, to energy, to language, to words, to body positioning or facial positioning if it's virtual, and all the context of the relationship up until then, that allows for a move that is made by the coach or therapist, which creates a huge breakthrough. And it could be just staying silent or asking that one question. And I think that faculty, that moment, is still very human, and will be in the human hands for a while to come. Anyways, we are done. Madeleine, thank you for joining us today. It's lovely to be with you. It's been great to reconnect. Great conversation, covered a lot of ground. Thank you all for joining us on this Friday and for being part of our community. I'll throw it to you, Madeleine. Anything you want to say goodbye, or just simple goodbye?
I very much appreciate the questions and all of you, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Yay.
Good seeing you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a
Thank
great
you
weekend,
all.
everyone.